Okay, fine. After all this time, a lot of people were telling me, you gotta play Ultrakill, you gotta play it. Fine, I bought it, I played it. Even if you might not be exactly aware of what Ultrakill is, I think just one look at the gameplay would tell you pretty much everything you need to know. I did not look at gameplay before buying it. I didn't check reviews, the description, or anything like that. I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't know what it was per se, but I more or less just walked into it completely blind. And I don't think I could have had a better time if I tried. You know, the hot or not thing, whatever, you're here now, so you gotta listen to me. If you want to walk in blind too, I suggest you just leave this now and go play it quickly. If you stay, I only show footage from Act 1, so there's not really spoilers besides Act 1. But I'm not exactly sure what is or isn't being said about this game. Like, this is new to me, you know? I think if I were to just speak on all of it or give it an analysis, like here's what Ultrakill is, it would be really boring, and I think it would be pretty much the same conversation that we had when I was discussing Titanfall as a series, because this has a lot of overlap with Titanfall. So instead, I'm just going to focus on the things I want to talk about, what really blew me away with this game, and why I like it so much. And if you've already listened to me talk about Titanfall, you'll be pretty up to date, so what's up? I'm Jake. Funny how I wrote a Patreon blog on all of my upcoming projects because the thing I chose to do literally had zero relation to those projects. Follow there for some blog posts and hopefully eventually monthly videos if it gets followed enough, but who knows, we'll see. Going right into Ultrakill, I want to pick out the visual and aesthetic design that's going on. Obviously, this game is a little reminiscent of the Doom and Quake games, both in basic mechanics, you know, the structures, the visuals. Now, this game does have an optional function to reduce the graphics and what is basically a PSX effect, giving this the illustrative fidelity that resembles that era. I have no idea if the community prefers the modern or old school graphics more, and if I had to guess, I would say old school. But I really like these. I love the PS1 and 2, the old school consoles. I'm a sucker, and I guess I yearn for an era that I wasn't old enough to experience if I was even alive. Y2K, where you at? I just didn't think I'd like this game so much if it weren't for the PSX visuals. That's not to say I wouldn't like it and I wouldn't enjoy it, but this is, at least for me, a big selling point. It helps the game feel more grounded, especially as we get into the other things I really like about it. So, as I spoke about in my Titanfall video, I'll stop referencing it now. If you've listened to it, then I'm sure you'll remember me talking a lot about how these games felt. And by feel, I mean they're like a reflex-oriented, crazy fast, chaotic feel. That's pretty much the same way I feel about this game, except, you know, I hate to say it, but like everything is so much more. You know, and they can get away with that kind of thing in a single-player shooter game like this. But I've been really liking this game, and it didn't take a whole lot, you know. The weapons themselves, or at least the 4 or 5 I've seen so far, they don't do a whole lot of innovating on a base level. I suppose they're intricate in mechanics and all the things that they can do and what's going on with them, but they're not intricate to actually use. I just love what these things do. Like, as you play, there's different play styles, an opportunity to really keep the gameplay diverse and impactful. And the different weapon mechanics aren't really something I quite saw coming either. But you know, I think it's just, it adds a whole lot more versatility for just one gun. Like, you know, charging up the revolver for a piercing shot, you get to do that, but then I get to swap it to, I spin it in my hand and it has a ricochet shot. And then there's the one where you toss the coin and then you shoot the coin and it hits something. Like, that's awesome. That is so sick. I didn't see that coming at all. And as far as I've seen, all these different guns have like 3 different things they can do besides, you know, they also shoot. And some of these extra mechanics affect the main fire more than others. Because on the revolver, it's basically the same thing. Like, you have your alternative mechanic, but at the heart of it, you're just going plink, plink, plink. And then, you know, when you get to the shotgun, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the pump mechanic on the shotgun has a little bit of a faster, like, base fire rate if you're not pumping, and the idea is that you're going to be pumping it up for a bigger shot. But I like the way it makes that gun feel versus, like, the shotgun grenade launcher thing, which I don't really like a whole lot. Each shot just takes too much to reload, for my tastes anyways. I'm sure as I get further into the game, I'm going to rely on it a little bit more here and there. But I like that there's a lot of personalization in terms of how these weapons operate. I can take a gun like the minigun or the revolver or whatever I want, and there's certain use cases in those mechanics that, yeah, I'm going to swap to depending on the situation or what I'm doing, or if I just feel like pulling off something cool. But also there's preference I have for these. Like, the coin toss thing I kind of do for fun. And I mostly revolve around like, okay, the charge one is for bigger guys or guys I'm going to want to chew through, while the ricochet one's while the room is full. I really liked seeing the machine gun too. I didn't really get a good grasp on it for a while. I had no idea what this nail magnet was. And then I realized if you like stuck it in something or just in the floor behind something, then you kind of don't have to aim as much. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. That makes sense. But also there's the other one where I can like overheat it, but I should be up close because all my bullets aren't going to hit anyway. And even the railgun itself, like it has that one, the base mode where like it pierces through things in a crazy shot, right? But the other one comes in and it like drills and creates a fountain of health. I think that is so cool. Just the different things that they've done with each of these weapons. It's not just one alteration or the other. It's like 3 different things. And I can kind of pick and choose for what I feel like is going on. So I all in all, just the gunplay really thoroughly impresses me, but it wouldn't impress me so much without this other key component too, which is the movement itself. Because the movement is, you know, very momentum based. Just sliding, I start moving forward like crazy. Like I'm sure just watching the gameplay, it's really easy to freak out and just move around a lot. And I might not be the world's best shot, but I'm really good at being fast. And that's what I really like about Ultrakill. Like, I have better reflex than anything in terms of movement. And I really like just playing with that, just seeing how it feels. Like, even as I go to, I get stuck and I have to restart a lot, especially in some boss fights. Like with V2, for example, if you know who I'm talking about yet. I really like that I was just moving around a lot. I mean, this game gets movement mechanics down to a very specific feeling for me, and I feel like I was built for this kind of game. It just resonates with me so perfectly. I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea, but at least watching it might be a little entertaining. But as you're going around, like, I'm sliding around a lot, so there's opportunities to pull out the shotgun, and then I'm jumping and shooting. And even in the earlier game, like when it wasn't as hard, I don't think you need to know a whole lot of movement tech besides just jump around and shoot a lot, right? Like, this game just asks you to get comfortable doing 1 or 2 things, and as you go forward, then it's kind of pushing you or trying to get you to pull off more. So as I was in the earlier stages, I'm kind of just jumping around with my revolver a lot. Maybe I'd use the shotgun here and there, but not really a whole lot. And then I remember I hit a certain boss fight. I think it was one of the sword guys. Oh my god, it was Agony and Tundra. That's who it was. And I realized, like, shit, you can just take the shotgun and slide around. And I forgot, like, the blood mechanic. If you punch something or you hit it while you're close enough to it with like a shotgun, for example, the blood comes out and it heals you. So really, you can just freak out around the room while I'm pumping my shotgun and being evasive, and then I find the window where I can slide into them and try to get that shot off, and even if I'm low health, like, it heals me up. That was so cool. And then I realized, as you get further, I'm just building more of my skill, and I'm going, wow, okay, now I'm comfortable swapping between certain weapons, whereas before I just really wanted to use the revolver and spin it a lot. And in union with what I was just talking about, I mean, the level design is unparalleled. This is some crazy atmosphere and setup we got going on. I mean, you got tunnels and hallways, sure, but even the very open rooms where it's like this is going to be a bigger encounter for you are very, at least, spacious enough to let me use the movement to buy myself some breathing room. Like, I'm not hitting all my shots per se, but when I do hit my shot, it feels really, really good. And I can just buy myself time. I feel like that's what 90% of the gameplay is when I don't know what to do or I'm under a lot of pressure, is just buying myself like a couple more seconds, freaking out around the room, and just trying to give myself some space. And even without that, the map itself, suppose when you're done with the encounters and you're trying to comb through it for secrets, like I was on Limbo Layer 1, there's no enemies, but the movement is just so fast. You can clear these in like record speed. You can just make so much ground. And I know that this game like really wants you to go fast, because there was even a challenge that threw me off at the end of one of them where it said clear the level in 10 seconds. I'm like, holy shit, 10 seconds? That is insane. This one took me like 3 minutes. It's just crazy that it kind of pushes this speedrun focused. Yeah, speedrun focus. I don't know where I was going with that. The maps are so cleverly designed, and they just wind in and out of each other. They have very unique rooms and aesthetics going on. Like the first couple, I think in the prelude, it's about hell, which makes sense to me. You know, I've played Doom before. I'm very familiar with this kind of thing it had me going with. And then once you beat the prelude, I get into limbo and I stop for a second, full stop, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is insane. Like, I didn't see this coming, not a mile away. It just caught me so off guard, and I sat there going, wow, this is cool. And you know, the rooms themselves are still kind of cramped. They're clustered, but it doesn't feel claustrophobic. It feels very open and cool. And I really liked, you know, going through this beautiful, nice area. It gets a little quieter, because that ties in with the sound design. I'll talk in a sec. It gets a little quieter, and it's more calm, and you're like, oh, okay, you know, taking it in. I wonder what's going to happen. And then a wave of enemies spawn, and you just cover this area in so much blood. I thought that was hilarious. And then one of the levels too, in that specific area, you come back out at some point and everything's on fire and it reintroduces the area. I mean, how cool. That is insane. And even to push it further, a shout out to the one map where the city is beneath you. I thought that was very cool. I liked the overall aesthetic going on and the different bosses happening. And then double shout out to the flesh pit, which is essentially just Jabu Jabu's belly. And ironically, it didn't feel all that different from Jabu Jabu's belly. And I'm not quite sure if that's something to say about this map specifically, or if it's something to say about Jabu Jabu's belly from Ocarina of Time. But, you know, I was going through, I'm like, I feel like if Nintendo was allowed to do this, they would have done it. They honestly, like, full-blown would have done this inside. But I really like these maps that we're setting up with. And what really sells it for me too, besides the visuals, you know, the PSX graphics, I love them, besides the movement and the combat itself, which is already so good. And I love the sound design, like just the sounds themselves. Because you know when you're in a room and it's an encounter room, but there's like moving parts to it and there's sounds involved with it, and the area feels so alive, like it's still moving. Even after I kill things, it feels like it's still going, right? And then the music itself is awesome. You know, just hardcore, like, fuck yeah, let me kill some things. But then it plays with you too when it gets real quiet, for example, like when you walk into Limbo or when you're going into Clair de Lune before fighting V2. I mean, I jumped into that mission and I stopped and I went, what the hell is this? This is, huh? And there wasn't much going on. And then the boss fight starts and it is so awesome. But before I really get into boss fights, I still want to talk about sound design. I love the guns themselves, how they sound. Like spitting the revolver in my hand, it has that sick sound. You know, you have the charge up. I love pumping that frickin' shotgun over and over. I think I did that for maybe 50% of my gameplay. I was definitely a shotgun and revolver main here. But the sounds are so good. There's this sound with the revolver. You might know what I'm going to talk about. In Destiny 2, there's this revolver called the Ace of Spades. It came out in Forsaken. I remember getting that as part of the pre-order bonus, or maybe there was a quest with it. I got something regarding the Ace of Spades. And I really liked that gun for a long time. You know, not only for the sound design part of it, but for the sound design part of it, because the bullets themselves sound like glass bullets. Like they're made of glass. That's how I would describe it. And I remember thinking like, wow, I've never heard a sound like this before. This is so satisfying. And I feel like we're getting a lot of similar kind of feelings with the sounds in this. I mean, yeah, some of the revolver sounds like the glass bullets thing, which I really like, but also it's scratching this like crease in my brain, right? That's what the game is doing the whole time, just like make me go, oh, wow, this is cool. But anyways, I'll get into boss talk and then I'll let you go, you know. Bosses in video games are some of my favorite all-time things. I love bosses in a video game. This is why I loved The Legend of Zelda when I was a kid. Because yeah, it's awesome, the story that's going on, getting the dungeons and the items for the dungeons and doing all of them. But I really, at the heart of it, I think I played a lot of these for the bosses. I want to see what they were going to do with the boss, how it was going to be. And I think that's why I tend to prefer a lot of the older Zeldas, especially Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I think their boss designs are very cool and weird and complex. They're mysterious, and that really sells me on that. I mean, Majora's Mask is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, and I think the bosses were done very well in that game. In the same regard, this is also why I really liked Dark Souls specifically. I mean, I love everything else about it, but the bosses sell me, and it's the same thing for this game. The bosses are so cool. I mean, just even talking about in terms of a mini boss, like when you're in the prelude, you know, you have the face thing, and I'm like, okay, you know, this is just, it felt like a standard mini boss fight, right? And I didn't realize it was going to be a true pain in my ass for the entire rest of the game, but I digress. But then you get to the Cerberus boss fight. I mean, that was still in the prelude, And I remember thinking like, oh, where's this boss going to come from? And then the statue gets up. I mean, that is so sick. And it had me freaking out, honestly. I was a little intimidated. I was definitely very worried about what was going to go on in that room. And it took me quite a couple tries to really get down. And what's funny is that boss, at the time, I was like, wow, I haven't done anything like this. And it just turns out to be a pretty standard enemy that, especially later in Act 1, wasn't really a problem for me in terms of taking care of it. You know, they were a little easier, and I was more grateful I got those than like the face guys, you know. But then some other mini bosses that were very interesting, like the sword machine, I think that's what it's called. And then you have the other two sword machines in that like chapel. Would you call it a chapel? I would call it a chapel. I think they would call it a dungeon, but that stained glass like chapel. You have the boss fight in there with Agony and Tundra. And as if like fighting the one wasn't enough, now you have two in a much smaller room. And it's situations like that that really get my blood pumping. I feel like a little bit of adrenaline coming, and I really have to lock in and get this done. And so I really liked bosses in terms of that. I would even add this happened right after for me. What is it? The Flesh Monstrosity? Something like that. I mean, that was a very cool boss. Just very well designed, like a gigantic flesh monster, but it's wearing like a stone face and other plating and stuff. I mean, how cool, just how unexpected in its design, right? That's why I like these things so much. And then you get to some of the bigger named bosses like V2, the Crypt King, Gabriel. I mean, wowee. Let me talk about V2 for a minute. This was my favorite boss fight in the entire act. It took me about 39 restarts, which I did over the course of 20 or 30 minutes. And even though I was restarting a lot, I really didn't mind. I actually kind of got off on it. I mean, this fight is like less of a fight and more of a beautiful, very high-paced dance between you and V2. I remember I was getting my ass handed to me the first couple times, and I'm like, what do I have to do? But what you have to do is just keep up with the pace of this fight. You have to really lock in and be fast. You have to fly around. You have to be, I wouldn't say accurate in your shots because I was missing a lot of shotgun shots, but you have to be evasive enough to get away from those attacks while being aggressive enough to match it and actually get those hits off. Also because, you know, I was using a shotgun the entire boss fight so I could get my blood back. But it was like one really long, fast-paced fight. I mean, none of the other bosses in Act 1 made me feel like V2 did. It was just so beautiful and artistic in its approach that it left me speechless. And this is right after, of course, Claire de Lune comes in. So you start with that low down, like, whoa, what is going on? And then you get into that fight. I mean, the build-up was immaculate. And you couldn't have done it better. You really couldn't have. Then you get to, like, the Crypt King guy. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I really like bosses where, okay, this is going to be a very strange Jake take here, but at the end of Yoshi's Island, when you're fighting, I think it's Bowser Jr. or Bowser or one of the two, but I just remember it gets so big that he's like the size of the world and you're shooting him from this platform as he gets closer. I like bosses like that. They are meant to feel so big, but they're still part of your active level design. And this guy was really cool too, because you kind of had to cycle, you know, like create a big loop. As is, you know, he picks up one hand and he goes to punch you, but the other's still down, so I'm trying to get that one. And he picks up the other hand, and then he has other things going on, so you just have to keep moving. And it kind of takes what V2 taught me and puts it to practice a little bit more. This guy wasn't that hard. He took me a couple of retries, but I got him. I just really liked the idea of it, and then when you kill him finally and his face falls down, they have to walk through his mouth to leave a level. I mean, that was so cool. And strangely enough, as I get into talking about Gabriel, it was a very cool boss fight, don't get me wrong. But this one took me no restarts. Mind you, what you're watching is me playing Act 1 for the first time ever. It's like 2.5 hours of footage, just start to finish. I played it in one sitting. And I've never played this game before. So when I got to Gabriel, I was even surprised that I beat him in the first place. But I think by now, you know, this late in the game, I realized like, oh, I need to move a lot. I need to swap my weapons a lot. I need to manage health. You know, I learned how to do all these other things that I was struggling with before. So granted, I think if I turned up the difficulty and played beyond standard, I think I'd be singing a very different tune right here. But Gabriel was still a very cool boss fight too, because it's like enigmatic. Again, why are we in this flesh pit fighting one of God's angels? And that's another small point I want to make about Ultrakill 2. Something I really like is the religious iconography. Now, I grew up in a Christian sphere, you know, Christian household, but I'm not Christian by any means. I just do have an appreciation for this kind of thing. I really liked Diablo back in the day for the same kind of thing, you know, taking this idea. I mean, what does it say when you first get into Ultrakill? Mankind is dead, blood is fuel, hell is full. Hell yeah, sign me up, dude. That is awesome. I mean, how sick. And so we're getting this far in, and he's talking about you're crossing the line of God himself or something like that. And you're fighting Gabriel. I mean, this is like a biblical figure here. And it was just so cool. Like, how sick. And even if Gabriel was easy, at least, you know, for me, for the difficulty, I really liked the very end too, because he drops, I think, the hardest F-bomb I've ever heard in my entire life.
Be bested by this thing. You insignificant fuck! This is not over!
All in all, this game, as far as I've played it, is a really enjoyable one. You know, I didn't make this video with any specific intention in mind. I wasn't going to talk about it in the same depth that I talked about Titanfall. I didn't want to write something crazy. But I played Ultrakill. People were trying to tell me to play Ultrakill, and I really actually enjoyed this. So if you haven't played it, then by God, this is why I liked it. And if you have, then I don't know, this is probably sacrilegious watching my crappy footage, but you know, here we are. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's all I got. Adios.